So, lassen wir noch die letzten Fotos für heute möglich werden.
Okay, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to start with the press conference. Dear representatives of the media, welcome also on behalf of my colleague Matthias Kopp to this second press conference at the Fourth Synodal Assembly. Yesterday, we were able to perceive, and we all perceived that we have an inhabitual situation. The foundational text failed, so to speak, the text on a renewal of sexual ethics teaching. Yesterday evening, there were separate meetings, group meetings of the Bishops' Conference and the Central Committee of German Catholics groups in order to dive deeper into this crisis-like situation. Expressly, I would like to say that it is normal that texts are not always adopted in a vote, but in yesterday's situation, it became clear that there's a problem of strategic blocks here. Today, you have four prominent representatives of the synodal path in front of you. Each of them will give a statement. Afterwards, there's the possibility to ask questions here in the room and also in the digital space, and we have about 45 minutes to do so. Let me start
mit den Möglichkeiten, die sich hier ergeben durch die Podienbeteiligungen. Ich bitte zunächst Bischof Betzing.
Our panelist, Bishop Betzing, your statement, please. Thank you very much, and a warm welcome to the representatives of the media. Thank you for your interest in this topic at a time where the world looks at Great Britain, the passing away of the Queen, who also played a major role in the church context as the head of the Anglican Church. And we are with the people in Great Britain and the Commonwealth in the Anglican Church, especially as until yesterday we have had Anglican guests here among us in Karlsruhe at the World Assembly of the Ecumenical Council of the Churches. Well, yesterday evening we saw a special situation that was painful, I admit that fully, and a crisis has resulted from this. A crisis initiated by the result of the vote on the foundational text of Forum number 4 on sexuality and partnership. The foundational texts are a theological and pastoral way of dealing with or attempting at describing and perceiving the present situation with regard to these four very important and diverse topics. The foundational text of the Forum 1, Power and Separation of Powers in the Church, has already been adopted. Three more foundational texts are to be adopted or were to be adopted. Two are still up for discussion, and these foundational texts are the basis of what is going to follow in the recommendations for action. We have always said that the synodal path is not about writing texts, but about changing actions. But in order to take actions, we need a foundation. And this is the important role of such a foundational text. This is why I regret personally that the text yesterday was not met with the necessary two-thirds majority of the bishops present. Well, all of you know the result of yesterday night's vote. More than 80% of the whole assembly voted in favor. Amongst the bishops, it was 61%, but 61% is not a two-thirds majority. This triggered a crisis not so much in view to the result itself, but in view of the transparency or the detectability, so to speak, of those who voted against the text, were they visible, so to speak, in the communication before this Synodal Assembly, that they take part in the hearings and voice their objection, and also in the general debate before the voting on the text? This is why yesterday evening we have spent a lot of time together with the members of the Bishops' Conference, and we tried to find words to express the responsibility we have. We have a threefold responsibility: a responsibility for the process that we have initiated together with the Central Committee of German Catholics. And we agree that this process of the Synodal Path must not fail, because many people, members of the Catholic Church in Germany, placed their hopes in it, and we owe it to them, especially to the victims of sexualized violence, to continue. The question of when the Synodal Path would have to be considered to have failed, this question was raised many times. And when foundational texts, important decisions must be or need to be postponed, then the success of the Synodal Path is threatened. That is why the bishops are responsible for the entire process. The second responsibility is the responsibility for this text itself, text that has been prepared in very lengthy discussions in a method of consensus by many committed people. The members of the Synodal Forum number 4 and the members of the Forum number 4 were people with diverse gender identities, different sexual orientations, who are fighting for being accepted and finding a place in the Catholic Church, being recognized as who they are. So it is clear that we are going to communicate this text to the global church when we are at the Ad Limina visit in Rome in November 2022. We will take this text with us. Also in January 23, when the preparations for the World Synod next year commence, we will take this text with us, and we will communicate it through all channels of discussion and deliberation where we stand. And now we, as a Bishops' Conference, are confronted with the challenge of taking a stance, a position, and it will be our task at the next General Assembly of ours. And of course, it needs to be prepared by the respective commissions we have. And we have a third responsibility, and I mentioned already the people, the persons who are concerned, or those who are affected or have been affected. And yesterday we had a discussion that more than 1/3 of the present bishops rejected the text, and this led to an emotional tension, a highly tense situation where certain people felt that they could not stay in the meeting room anymore. And both of us this morning heartfully thanked the people, those people who left yesterday, but who came back this morning, willing to continue to work with us and to fight for what is dear to them. It remains to be said that in the Bishops' Conference there are divergent opinions concerning important questions of theology and the evolution of the theological doctrine. This is nothing new. Those who have been accompanying us over the past years and also on the Synodal Path know that a major difficulty is that there are certain bishops, okay, they make their opinion known, and this is to be respected. But yesterday we had a situation where I myself personally, after all the discussions, debates, motions put forward before the vote on the text, I didn't have the impression that this text was threatened to not succeed. And many synod members said it. The bishops actually were not present. They were not engaged in the preparation process, and they are not voicing their opinion openly. And there might be reasons for this. We intensely discussed this yesterday evening. However, there's an expectation of the synod members altogether that this be different, and this is a justified expectation. This also leads us to us having intense discussions. And, well, we had the case this morning that we conferred a task to our interpretation commission in order to find out how to deal with recorded votes or secret votes. People want to know who cast which vote in such a situation. I can understand this fully, and the bishops are aware of it. And yesterday night there was a vote to change this so that we respect this fact in upcoming votes. So different images within the church, within the understanding of certain offices, different understanding pertaining the role of women in the future, the role of women in ministries and offices, different opinions with regard to the church's sexuality or sexual morality. Okay, there are different pictures, different images, different opinions amongst the bishops, and this will lead to a multi-speed process, so to speak, or a two-speed process within the dioceses in Germany. And the life situation of people concerned is such that they are not going to wait for us and for text. Thank you very much, and I pass the floor to Irme Stetter-Kabel, President of the Central Committee of German Catholics and co-president of the Synodal Party.
Dear media representative, this situation cannot be whitewashed. It is painful. The German bishops, in their overall totality, and I have to say that I want to appreciate those who wanted to reach a different result than what we saw yesterday. The German bishops have to face a situation where they were not accountable vis-à-vis the damages that were caused by the abuse. And this afternoon we will have to see whether the persisting blocks will be kept up and whether individuals are going to defend things. This is not about us not being willing to bear with a text that failed in a democratic process. We will do that, and we have to. But in yesterday's votes, more things became clear. There are people in this assembly who do not openly speak about their opinion. They don't participate in hearings. They don't participate in forums, or in the evening they say, "I'm tired." This is what I heard last night. Not getting involved when it comes to preparing texts and then pushing the red button in the voting process, that is very easy. And afterwards, they don't even share about their motives. And it's really difficult for me to understand this in the context of synodality. This is not synodality the way I understand it. And I ask myself whether we still have a trustful and confidential foundation for cooperation in this assembly. This question is open and pending, and as I said, we will see what is going to happen this afternoon. So the hidden people who block things, they are a problem, and this is really painful to me. And when it comes to the question of women, you know, everybody knows that this question is really dear to my heart. So I hope that we can make sure that we can return to an open way of voting, and by this change the current atmosphere, because we are going to discuss central topics. We're going to vote on central topics, and I'm rather nervous and tense to see how the majority of men and women will react if they see that there are people who continue to block things. The Central Committee of German Catholics, on invitation of the German Catholics Conference, started the Synodal Path in the First Assembly, and also after that we committed with a lot of commitment, especially given our small resources in our General Secretariat. Let me remind you that the question of women was a condition for us, because at the very beginning it was an inclusive topic, but not an exclusive topic to be discussed. This morning, at the very beginning of our session, I said maybe it cannot be taken for granted that the Central Committee of Catholics stays at the Assembly. As a response to Bishop Betzing's reaction to show respect for the affected persons who return to the Assembly. Let me repeat that. I would like to see the Bishops' Conference to set things in motion. Due to yesterday's event, I want to see communication change. I want people to communicate with transparency and openness. Everybody who is really committed, also those who oppose reforms, need to express themselves openly. Texts that are presented for second reading have to be discussed and scrutinized by those who have objections. We have to hear about objections before the vote. If you don't speak and then vote no, in that case you abuse the trust and the confidence of people who want to work for reforms. And this is not only people here in the Assembly in Frankfurt, but many, many people out there who are waiting for years and for reforms, and it is not in our hands how long they will continue to wait. The Synodal Path came up because the MHG study saw a link between abuse and structures of the Church and the Catholic teachings. We need to tackle those topics. The Synodal Path is crucial for that, and if it's discredited or fails, the German bishops need to bear the consequences, and those will be fatal. Thank you so much, Dr. Stetter-Karp. I would like to pass on the floor to Beate Gillis, the General Secretary of the German Bishops' Conference. Thank you. I would like to focus on what we managed to do. 80% of approval is a foundation. If we look back, how we dealt with those topics before the Synodal Path, we can see that we took a major leap in how we speak about topics. The topic is going to continue to be a hot topic, even if it doesn't get the necessary majority on part of the bishops. And if we take a look at the afternoon, if we tackle the next text, it became clear, and let me add that it touches also the depths of the text who was not approved of yesterday. There are scientific results, theological research. All these aspects have been integrated into the text. And also with regard to the next text on the women's issue, this is central. And this lays the foundation for the orientation and foundational texts. And this adds to the pain, because it is not only about the synodal path of the past 2 years, but it's also about scientific research and scientific results. And we have to take a closer look at what that means for our church. And we summarize that here, and this is why this situation adds to the pain. So the question at stake is if we can dwell on the topics in the Bishops' Conference also and process the results. This is what we're at. And also all our efforts to open spaces beforehand were not successful. I would like to mention a second topic that played an important role this morning. Bishop Ackermann shared his report, and Johannes Norput gave a response to it. And what came up was, what about the current procedure? And Bishop Ackermann reported on us being on our way. Mr. Norput mentioned the homework that is still to do, also the lawsuits that is pending, also the option that other lawsuits might follow. And at this point, it is important that when it comes to the process of the acknowledgement of the suffering, that was always an independent process. We know that many things cannot be put in front of the court. And with regard to the affected person, we know that we cannot tackle and cover all the aspects that they need, and they always have the option to go to court, and the affected persons who have that option should and can use that as an option. This is something I wanted to make clear, because sometimes people ask themselves, if I have two options, there's the choice for affected persons, but the commission, the Independent Commission on Recognition Payments, does not want to avoid those facts of lawsuits. Mark Frings, the Secretary General of the German Catholic, of the Central Committee of German Catholics. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here and to witness a deep crisis of the Bishops' Conference. At the time, the Bishops' Conference was in favor unanimously for opening the synodal path on the basis of the MHG study. But we focus on people who are victims of violence and fell victims in the context of the Catholic Church, but we are also speaking about the people who are involved in the systemic factors that are at the root causes and that despair about the systemic root causes. 60% of the bishops voted for, and the rest was objected. A very important text was not adopted, and this is truly dramatic, because in February, when we came together here, we were all enthused due to the Out in Church campaign, the successful campaign, and in the light of individual contribution on part of the bishops, we had the impression that things are changing in the institutional church. We were wrong, and last night also was to show the events of yesterday, put also into question if the bishops are really serious when it comes to synodality. We had Antragsgrün, we had debates. No, everybody was able to contribute. And I think that leadership in the church should be a transparent process. The faithful should be allowed to know how the bishops respond to the signs of the time and how they vote. And we should also be allowed to know what they are afraid of. I'm not speaking about the option for the synodal path to fail. Let me dwell on when it will be successful. It will be successful if, after the Fifth Assembly, we can present specific results to the faithful in Germany that will then be implemented. It's not only about resolution that will be presented to Rome, but it's also about resolutions that need to be presented and implemented on the diocesan levels. And this is our claim. This is the claim of the synodal path. We should not get stuck in a crisis mode. So after yesterday's event, we just have to get up again and ask ourselves how we continue. This is the question to the 230 synod members, but it's also about a question that goes to the ZDK and the DBK. And this afternoon, we cannot leave it to very few bishops. We cannot leave to them that they dominate, vis-a-vis so many people and bishops who want to see reforms. And we need also to look back at the motivating moments that we experienced on our path. At the Katholikentag, we had more than 3,000 visitors at our booth on the synodal path. 90% of those visitors expressed themselves in a positive way on the synodal path. They encouraged us. They were interested in what we are currently doing here. And I would also like to come back to the Universal Church. When we started in 2019, we were accused of preparing a schism, that we wanted to discuss specific German topics that we believe are relevant for everybody. But now we have a different knowledge. The Herder issue was mentioned, and we see that the contributions on a global church level make clear that we are merely part of similar debates, similar concerns on a global level, not only in Europe. 2 weeks ago, I was guest of a workshop of the Bishops' Conference that held a workshop with Arab Christians. Choose Abundant Life is a text that I can only recommend. Reforms are identified, marginalized groups are identified, and there is a great overlapping with the issues that we tackle with here. And I would also like to mention that we can learn from that region because it is an ecumenical text. And this brings me to the end, because we are here together with observers from the ecumenical sphere, from other churches, and that helps us to build bridges, that helps us to make sure that we can all feel that we're not alone on our path. And this is important to remind us of, because the observers are here with us and they take the impressions back that they gain here. Thank you so much, Mark Frings.
Okay, now the floor is to Matthias Kopp, who has information. Thank you very much. I want to say something about the numbers because it might lead to confusion. The Bishop Conference consists of 69 members. 7 of them are not here due to illness, etc. 2 of them were not present yesterday evening, but they are there today. So yesterday evening we had 60 bishops who were invited to vote yesterday, to cast their vote, and 57 votes were cast. Today, 62 bishops are present, The two who were missing yesterday are here today. So now, yes, please ask your questions and tell us whom you address your question to. Please raise your hand so that I can take notes of everybody. Please use the microphone and open the microphone for Mr. Wilkes. Here we go. Okay, T. Wilkes of WDR. The last thing you said is something I would like to ask a question about. Both of you spoke about more than 60% of consent. If I look into the statutes, Article 11, Section 2, there I read 2/3 of the bishops present, not those who said yes or no. I understand it such as the abstentions are counted as well, and those who are not present. So if you take 33 out of 60, it is only 55%. So it's not even more than 60. So talking about more than 60% is an embellishment in a certain way. Bishop Betzing, in the past assemblies, we spoke about abstentions and how they should be valued, and we agreed upon considering them as people being absent. So out of the 57 votes cast by the bishops, the 3 abstentions are deducted. So 54 votes are counted, out of which the majority is calculated. And everybody knows that an abstention means, or is equivalent to, I have left the room. That was cleared in the one of the last meetings. Okay, colleagues who are taking part online, pressestelle@wdbk.de is the address. Okay, we have a lot of raised hands here. Mr. Brüggen-Jürgensen is next. I would like to continue straight away. Mark Frink said that we must avoid that a few bishops dominate everything, but the fact is that out of 60 bishops, only 33 voted yes. So my question to you, Bishop Betzing, is the following. Well, you were left standing in the rain, so to speak. We have 69 bishops, and you always encouraged them, or you encourage people to vote for the text. So what about you? Have you thought about withdrawing from your office, stepping back due to the development that took place? And with all our efforts to stay together, well, you have to say that it is a fact that nearly half of the bishops are basically against this path. They want to stay in their world and they don't want to move. So don't you have to be honest and say the synodal path is over? Okay, Bishop Betzing again. 33 voted in favor, 21 voted against. No, I don't think about stepping back. I will not leave the field to those who don't want to move. And I would like to answer clearly that I do not take such a decision when I've only slept 4 hours, and I'm not going to take such a decision on my own. From my point of view, we are in a situation where we have a question in the room which needs to be discussed. And you can be sure of it that we will not even try to get around this question. We will need to discuss within our different bodies, within the ZDK, for instance, what we are going to do now. And I think it is a question, well, the question whether we know that the path has failed, that this is a pattern that is going to repeat. If I knew it, I would give you a different answer. But we are not, you know, like in a padded cell in a rubber room where we can't move. But I don't know yet. And this is why I said yesterday in my group that we have to distinguish between what is going on here until Saturday and the time afterwards. And what I'm seeing here is just different stages, different places for clarification. And I think when it comes to the baseline, we are pretty much agreeing, even if it's totally effortful. I am not willing to simply step back and say, okay, we have a situation where some individuals think that by blocking everything and by dominating the situation with such a blockade, which they are not even communicating, well, yes, then you could say we're at the point of an end, but this is not yet the case. At least in my point of view, I'm still willing to fight for this path. Mr. Strack, please. My name is Christoph Stark. I represent the Deutsche Welle. 2 questions. First question may be addressed to Ms. Stetterkarp or Mark Frings, I don't know. Yesterday, during the voting process, the number of votes cast was close to 200, 198, 99. This morning, only 195 votes were cast. So are you sure that nobody left the assembly now? Definitely. And as to the second question, Bishop Betzing, do you know now, after yesterday's discussion, who amongst the bishops voted no without communicating it? It's not about me wanting to know names, just about wanting to know what the situation is. I would like to answer the first question. I do not know of anybody specifically, neither by name or, I don't know of any delegate who said, okay, I'm leaving and I'm not coming back. But it's not something I can exclude. Yesterday evening, we decided to look ahead. So I have not asked in the group who voted against the text, but we sort of established a mood picture for the upcoming votes, because the colleagues in office agreed that it was unbearable not to know what their brothers, who are also bishops, think. Mr. Orts is next. Stefan Ort of Herder Correspondence. I would like to get back to Ms. Stetterkarp's and Mr. Betzing's expectations with regard to the agenda of the Fourth and Fifth General Assembly. Don't we have to assume that there will be only a trimmed program, so to speak? There are so many texts. There are foundational texts, implementation texts, first reading, second reading. Are you going to proceed step by step and just see how far you get, or what is your idea about the process? Well, we need to stay pragmatic, and we plan rather with a short-term approach. But it was always clear that not all topics to be dealt with in the synodal forums that have been prepared will be thoroughly worked through in the synodal assemblies. This is why it is so important to establish synodality permanently in the Church in Germany. So again, the buzzword is a synodal council. It becomes all the more important. This is very clear to me, so that we have a basis to continue working like this. The colleague representing ARD, let me briefly answer your question, Mr. Leven. Why don't you invite one of the bishops who voted against the foundational text of Forum 4? Well, we were of the opinion within the Synodal Committee that this is the hour of the presidency to take a position regarding this general crisis. Yeah. Schumann of Tagesschau, building on the question that was just asked to Bishop Betzing, you mentioned the word or the term crisis. Does the synodal path still make sense in this form? Is this a question that needs to be asked? This is a question I am not asking myself. It merely shows the urgency of decisions to be taken. That is something I said yesterday. It's an unbelievable pressure for change that we can feel here. And the situation after this, let me call it by its name, a failed decision, shows us that there is such a pressure for change. So the only way to move is forward. Mr. Rauch? 2 questions to Bishop Betzing. One dogmatic question. How me as a little sheep the little lamb. How can I know if my shepherd, the bishop, does not tell me how he voted yesterday? And why can't Mr. Kopp not during the course of the day collect the individual votes and publish them? So why are the bishops such cowards, so to speak, such sissies even, and not voice their opinion? And you did a test vote, okay, to see what might go through, what might be rejected. And a question to Immerstädter-Karp. You know, there's co-clerical behavior. Clericalism only works as long as the stupid sheep are running after their bishop. And what is a red line for you that you would not like to be crossed? Well, you said you didn't want to threaten yesterday, but maybe today you want to make a threat, or pose a threat. Regarding your first question, it was rightly asked. The bishops were asked to explain themselves. If they didn't communicate beforehand, that they do it now. Because in the Synodal Assembly, we are equals. There is only a voting behavior where the bishops are represented in the specific responsibility for the church. And this is why they are asked to explain themselves. And there are bishops who are fighting openly. They are voicing their opinion honestly. Bishop Oster, Bishop Woderholster are examples, also Cardinal Wolke. And I respect that. They are not the problem. The problem are those who are not communicating openly. And I can only ask or repeat this demand. Explain yourselves. And regarding your second question, I will not make this mood picture public. You can expect it, but I won't do it. Clericalism. I know what you are talking about. And I can only repeat what I said before. But I would like to add a statement. I talked about, decisions to be taken and that you can't do it alone when you're half asleep. But let me mention again that before the synodal path, there was a phase or stage of a so-called dialogue process. And in this dialogue process, I deliberately, intentionally decided not to be active because I had the impression that it was nothing serious, It might be a misinterpretation, but it was my interpretation back then. Maybe the bishops were, not advanced enough in understanding that they need the people as well. But, well, I'm not sure. With regard to this critical request, I'm totally aware of it, and I know that there are many delegates in this room who are always looking at themselves in the mirror and ask themselves the question, okay, what is my contribution to this situation? What did I do to cause that it is the way it is? But we don't have the power in our hands. It is still elsewhere. I can't actually accept all questions. I will accept 2 more questions, so please ask only 1 question and not 5 questions. Mr. Strong, your turn. Mike is coming. And then we have a colleague sitting there in the back of the room. And all of the others will be angry, but we won't manage. We need to start with the assembly at 2. Okay, Michael Strong of Public Forum. The bishops who explained themselves yesterday why they voted no, they say that there was a huge emotional pressure. They refer to their decision of conscience and to the doctrine of the Universal Church. Is that sufficient for you as a reasoning, or do you think there's something else behind? Maybe this is a question I would like to address to the panel as a whole. Okay, only to Bishop Besting. We have to keep an eye on time. This is something we need to discuss seriously, because it has been said that there's an attitude of blocking, meaning people exercising power by using these blocks. And I'm not sure, what the situation is really like. There might be a lot of noble words, and I know that there are brothers who are very serious when it comes to what they are saying, but I don't know whether there's anything hidden behind. I would like to add, it is not enough. It can't be enough like that, because in this way we would consolidate a system of total institutionalization. Okay, last question. I represent La Croix, a French journal. According to your opinion, which role might the declaration by the Holy See published in June have played? This is a good question, and I can only give you an estimate. My assumption is that, well, this declaration was interpreted as a manner of influencing bishops before votes. And maybe the declaration has reached this goal. Maybe. Dear colleagues, thank you very much for your interest. Tomorrow at 3:30, maybe a little bit earlier or later, we will continue according to the situation. Have a nice rest of the day. We meet again in the auditorium.